What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome to Warriors Way, the first Warriors post-game show for the fans, by a fan. I am your host, Alan Stiles, and if you weren't around, I did a couple dry runs. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to thank you for that. Thank you. If you are new, welcome to the show. Look, what we did in the dry runs, I pretty much talked about the show. Talked about the game, and then after the game, or after I broke it down, we did our calls, and it was a good time. I'm so juiced up off of what the Warriors were able to do. It didn't look great, but they were able to pull it out on the national stage. It was amazing to watch. The phone lines are open all day, throughout this whole show. Call in whenever. I'm just doing my thing, talking. You want to be a part of the conversation, you can throw it in the chat. You can text me if you got the number's right there, or you can call in as well. So let's just break it down. Look, I know I got some buddies that might be on East Coast time or get to bed a little early. Look, we're going to make the late night a great night. You're either rocking with us or you're not, and you better be as excited as I am after what we saw. Because like I said, I did a lot of tweeting during this game, and pretty much all of it ended up being a really cold takes because the Warriors came back and won. But at the time, you know, when the facts change, my opinions change. So now everything that I was talking about, let's just pretend like it didn't happen. But let's go to the first quarter. First quarter, Draymond got a tech for really no reason. It hasn't been playing that well. Steve Kerr expected him to have a bounce back game, and that wasn't really necessarily the case to start, but he was able to, rein it in and be who he wanted. We saw the TNT clip of him talking to James Wiseman saying, you can do this, this, and this. We like all that, but it is pretty hard sometimes to watch Draymond and his inability. Oh, let me see here. Let me change that. I got the text lines blowing up already. Look, man, they want to know. Texter writes in, tell us how they won. They won by basically allowing the Lakers to get in their own way. I think that when you watch this game and when you watch how it progressed, it was so many different runs. If you look at the highlights right here, every time the highlights change, someone's up by 10 or the Warriors are up by 10, or Warriors are down by 10, then they're down by 2. They keep on going back and forth. I didn't think they would get over the hump. I tweeted this as well. It reminded me of the Nuggets game. And in the Nuggets game, they were very close. They got close. They almost got blown out in the first quarter again, and they were able to keep it close. So that's what I liked about it. But I didn't personally think they would be able to pull it off. When it comes to the Lakers, they were getting good looks, and it's interesting when you're LeBron and you've got the threes going and you feels good, and he's taking shots. He's not even looking where he's shooting. He's showboating with his buddies on the bench. But the thing is, you can go to the lane anytime you want, and this was a weird game for LeBron deciding not to do that, and the Warriors benefited from that, in my opinion. I think this game was more about, and I hate to do this because I did this when they beat the Clippers. It's not that I'm not giving the Warriors credit, but the Lakers let them back in again, and they just seem sluggish in a way. But not to take anything away from the Warriors, it was just surprising to me. But any given day, any given Sunday, obviously today's Monday, any given day, I thought it was a wrap when Kelly Oubre airballed a wide open 3. But the thing is, if I could have one thing from these players, you talk about height, athleticism, give me Kelly Oubre's confidence any day of the week. This man will airball a 3 and in the very next possession showboat for getting a charge call or getting a ball knocked out of bounds. Like, that's the type of energy that we need. And he's had a rough go. Well documented, it's been a rough go, but he's been able to hang around and find other ways to get his game going. And he led that second unit in the second quarter when they got it close. I joked about how they got it close, and then the starters came in and blew it again. And next thing you know, they're down by 11 again, or they're down by 15. I think the most they were down by today was 19. So just a really, really good victory. And the Warriors are that type of team. I think they're going to benefit from the fact that everyone's used to the Warriors being a juggernaut. That's not who they are this year. That's not who they are. But that doesn't mean you can sleep on them or disrespect them. And we've talked about the Remind Tour with Steph. It seems like they're not disrespecting him, but I feel that even other players may have forgotten just a little bit of what Steph's able to do. Cold start for Steph. I think he was, 2 for 10 or something at halftime. Changes shoes, which always works, almost always works. And still, it took him a little bit, but you're starting to see him force the issue, which can result in some turnovers and some things that Steph doesn't usually do. But at the same time, this is a team where he's going to have to do that. We had a Jordan Poole sighting. That was quick, short-lived as well. I don't think he shot, at least. If he did, I didn't catch him. And look, I'm not changing my takes just because they won. At one point, when I'm writing this stuff down, the starters just weren't good enough. And this starting unit has a lot of flaws. Draymond can't shoot. Wiseman's a rookie who, he's not a shooter per se. He can shoot. Wiggins is a wild card, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And Oubre, again, we don't know what you're going to do, but when you talk about spot up guys and the ability to not just throw the whole kitchen sink at Steph, that doesn't seem to be what is happening with this starting unit, and that's why it's a problem. The second unit comes in, you got Pascal, who's going to bully ball you. Wanamaker, who I personally think he shoots a little bit too much, but he can get things done. He gets a lot done for you defensively, and offensively, he's going to get to the lane and get you that way. Damian Lee has kind of come back to earth from his performances of the beginning of the season when he started out really hot. But you have shooters and you have guys that can at least spread out the offense. This first unit, you don't really have that, and you're trading it in for what Draymond gives you, and you're trading it in for the defense that Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins brings. But when they're not hitting, it's the Steph show, which we all love to see, but isn't always conducive to good basketball and winning basketball. To be honest, I tweeted this. What is happening? I'm not even really sure how the Warriors came back. I mean, those 2 buckets from Draymond down towards the end of the game where he traveled on the one, didn't get the call. The Warriors not getting a call or against the Lakers. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. So you knew things were happening. You knew things were happening on a good note. And look, I said it as well. It's well documented that the Warriors haven't played well. They don't really play that well at Staples Center. They didn't play that well when they had KD and Clay. I think for a while when the Warriors were really rolling, they would always drop a random game to the Lakers. Like, bad too. Like, they would get smacked. So I wasn't really... It would have been bad because this would have been the third, and I'm calling it a primetime game just because there aren't that many throughout the season. You have Christmas, MLK Day, you have opening night, opening day, Christmas, MLK Day, and then the playoffs. And the Warriors, any team that is said to be in the mix or has a superstar like Steph Curry, you're going to play on probably all 3 of those days. And the Warriors didn't show up against the Nets. They didn't show up against the Bucks, and this was really their last opportunity. They'll get down. I'm assuming ABC has those games that they have towards the end of the season when it gets closer to the playoffs. They'll have other opportunities, but this was a big one because it's against the Lakers at home, and they didn't get off to a great start. Throughout the whole course of the game, I was kind of asking myself, did Wiggins play? Because it didn't really seem like he did. I know he started out okay, but I just didn't really see him do too much. I'm talking to my buddies, talking about he needs to be more assertive and things like that. I don't think he necessarily needs to be more assertive per se. I just think he needs to figure out, and this has been throughout the course of his career, he just can't necessarily figure out what his skill set is or what he wants his skill set to be. You know, Some days he feels like he's a jump shooter. He's off the dribble, he'll make them. Catch and shoot, he's not doing that well. Other days, he's a slasher. And that is tough when you're playing with a guy like that because you like to know what they're going to do or what you assume they're going to do. Wiggins, you truly don't know. You truly don't know. JJ Redick, this guy's going to shoot, you know. Again, Wanamaker, most of the time he's going to drive. Oubre's a little bit of a wild card, but Oubre, he brings so much energy that you just allow him to do whatever he wants. He's going to do whatever he wants anyway, okay? He's blowing kisses, he's getting technical fouls. Terrible call on the technical foul. He just blew a kiss. What's next? You know, this is the NFL. I don't understand why there was a technical foul call there. Like, Draymond, I thought, believed his. I saw on Twitter some people thought both of them were soft. You can't berate referees. You never have been able to do that. And you definitely can't do that when you're not at the top of the totem pole anymore, and the Warriors aren't. So, Draymond, we know that you probably already get more leeway than other players do. Okay, I don't think Draymond's tech was equal to Kelly Oubre blowing a kiss, but you can't yell and scream and cuss out refs all the time and think that they're not going to do anything about it. That's just how I feel as far as the Draymond tech. I just thought it was stupid. I just think that when you discuss how Draymond played or how he didn't play that well against the Nuggets, we could almost chalk it up to the first half of that Lakers game. Let's just throw it all together and say things really got started for Draymond that second half of Lakers Warriors, because that's when you started to see him do more of the things he we're used to seeing him do. So that's how I would necessarily put that situation. But yeah, you get to so it's 64-48 going into halftime, and I mean, you're not excited, Dub Nation. We're not excited. We're not thinking the Warriors are going to be able to pull this off because, hey, the Lakers aren't the Clippers, right? They're not going to be able to do this again. Yeah, they did it against the Clippers, but they're the Clippers. The Clippers blow leads against everyone. Death, taxes, and Clippers blowing double-digit, sometimes 20-point leads. So we were excited after the Clipper game. We were excited. I was excited. But did we think that they could do it against the mighty Lakers, who have been rolling? And I said, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought this, but I'm watching the Lakers. I forgot who they played last. No, it couldn't have been the Nuggets. I believe it was another Western Conference team. Oh, it was the Pelicans. And you're watching that, and I'm not a LeBron hater, but I do think it's fun when LeBron loses, and you're watching them hoping that the Lakers lose as usual. But then I'm thinking, do we really want the Lakers off a loss? And everything is rolling for them right now. I as much as I wanted them to lose, I also thought that there probably isn't a chance in hell that the Warriors are going to beat the Lakers if the Lakers are coming off a loss. They don't need any bulletin board material, and not that there would have been in that way, like, can you do it? It's just one loss, but the bear can be poked in a couple different ways. Oh, you just lost to Zion and Lonzo, but they win. They come in riding a high, and I think they just fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. So that's why, for me, just when you're thinking about, and it's shot making. Look, that's what's going to be so tough about this Warriors team when it comes to doing what I'm doing, talking about them. Because the offense is the offense, and they're going to have opportunities. Because of Steph, you're going to have open shots. Whether you hit those shots or not is how we're going to figure out if the Warriors are going to win games or not. So besides turnovers, and it was sloppy at the beginning on both ends from the Lakers and the Warriors, I thought they both left some opportunities out there. But you see that happen, and then you look up at the scoreboard. First of all, Dennis Schroeder torched the Warriors in that first half. He could not be stopped. He literally could not be stopped. He torched them. And also, side bit about Dennis Schroeder, am I the only one? You know, he played with the Hawks for a long time, and then he was with, I believe, OKC. I don't remember him flopping this much. He was on the ground a lot in this game, and I think we talked about it. To be honest, not to exaggerate, I thought I was watching Patrick Beverley for a couple possessions where Patrick Beverly-esque, I will say. But it's just it's very confusing to watch this Warrior team and watch them do well, and then blow the comeback and then have another comeback. It was a very confusing game, but I think at the end of it all, the Lakers got sloppy, and the Lakers looked at the lead, and they've been rolling and thought they could roll through, and Steph Curry wasn't playing well. I think that was the one thing you do look at when you go into the locker room, because Dennis Schroeder played so well in the first quarter or so that you forgot that Anthony Davis took a while to get going, LeBron took a while to get going, and they had a big lead. So now they're thinking, look, if we can just we're going to get rolling as far as LeBron and Anthony Davis are concerned, so we'll be okay. But the one thing you forgot about is that Steph Curry wasn't rolling yet. And Steph Curry is obviously the straw that stirs the drink for the Warriors. So the Warriors had hope in that regard as well. So now you head into the second half thinking, look, we're kind of hanging around. We've had moments. And you get into that third quarter when they get it close, even though a decent bit of that deficit that the second unit had minimized, even though some of it did blow back up when the starters went in, it was still closer than the halftime deficit. So you're still feeling good, and Steph eventually gets going. You know when it's money time, he's going to be there. He's not going to make every shot. Nobody makes every shot, but he's going to do enough to have everyone hang around. When you look at Wiseman, I don't think he's being asked to do too much. I just think that he has to do a lot, which means it's a quick learning curve. And we know when you listen to any broadcast, this is only his 12th, 11th game. We know he only played 3 games at Memphis. We know. And can we also just, how long are we going to talk about that? I think it's very impressive. We all do. He is a teenager. But do we have to say it every time he's involved in any play? Or in any camera time, he only played 3 games at Memphis and now you're guarding LeBron James. Well, yeah, that's what happens in the NBA. That's what happens. I mean, they're trying to get rid of the one and done rule anyway. So I get it, but do we have to say it it's the same that I talked about last episode or last show with Damian Lee. We know he's Steph's brother-in-law. We know that. Can we move on and talk about other things, please? But he's going to stay in foul trouble. They're going to keep switching on him. And that is why it's so important. Now, Looney can't make Wiseman's legs quicker, but Looney does a good job of defending guards for his size. And Draymond is the Swiss Army knife when it comes to defending all the positions. So with those two guys, you have to be excited for the future of James Wiseman, because yeah, he's having a bit of a tough stretch right now, and I think even a game or a couple of games ago he went off, but the defensive aspect, we know that's going to be the toughest. Look, I've talked about it before. Luka doesn't play no defense. Nobody talks about him, but Harden does get roasted about it. Wiseman will get better. We're not too concerned about it. And again, the Warriors found a way to win. Even with it, they still found a way to win. They start hitting threes. We have a Looney sighting. Looney hit a 3. That was encouraging. So they start rolling, and you see a couple go in, and now the basketball hoop looks like the ocean, and you can just start throwing things around and throwing the ball in the hoop, and everything just seems to be going your way. Kyle Kuzma, the Warriors, I mean, they would have came back even quicker if it wasn't for Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma went off. And Kyle Kuzma is another guy. I would put him in that category. I've talked about Andrew Wiggins and Paul George, how they're kind of memes of the NBA world, whether it's NBA Twitter or something like that. They're kind of memes in that way. And Kuzma decided to show up today. He did. Let's see what he actually ended up with. So he ended up with 15, but it was a solid 15 when the Lakers, were trying to hold on to the lead at that time. Solid 15 from him. but it just wasn't enough. Did anybody see that LeBron freaking out? I think it was on Caldwell Pope after he traveled. So LeBron traveled, but he traveled, and it was his fault he traveled because Kentavious should have shot. Like that, and he ripped him too. It was Tom Brady-esque because at the end of the day, I didn't make you travel. You traveled on your own. You could say that I probably should have shot it, which I should have, but I did not make you travel. So that was pretty funny to see, and that was when the wheels started to come off a bit. And when you talk about LeBron, I'm on record saying that LeBron is one of the only athletes, I think, LeBron, Mahomes, I would say as well, that truly can turn it on and turn it off. When they say, or when your coaches would say when you were growing up, hey, you can't turn it on and turn it off, you're not that good. They were right. The thing is, most pros aren't that good either. But LeBron James seems to be an athlete that can turn it on and off. And I think that's why I see a lot of tweets like the Lakers love to give teams hope and then snatch it away. I don't think that's the Lakers. That's always been LeBron's style, kind of gauging the team or gauging what the other team is doing and then making that push at the end, which is a dicey way to live. And when you go up against a guy like Curry, you got to be careful. Now, LeBron does have a championship against him. We all know the 2016 year was tough. We don't speak about the 3-1 year here. But it's not always going to work out for you. The same way we've seen with Mahomes. He's had some close calls, and we're going to see. You better not play them games against the Bills. It's a different subject for a different day. But when you look at the Warriors, man, it was just so encouraging to see them not crumble when they could have crumbled. And they know, Steph knows, your primetime games, like I talked about, opening night, Christmas, MLK Day, and that's pretty much it. You'll have some more with ABC, but that's pretty much it. You really don't want to lose all of those games because there's not chances are you are playing at the very least a playoff team in those games. So how do you stack up against them? We would prefer for the Warriors to come out hotter, but I'll take it. I'll take the W. I mean, it was something else. It doesn't help all of our blood pressure, and I know the Giants used to be, the team that would put you through all this ups and downs and things like that. The Warriors used to just come out and, these last couple of years and just hit you in the mouth, or they just wouldn't show up. The torture was not the Warriors, but it seems to be that's the direction. But this is a new day. This is a scrappy team. Eric Paschall, I'm looking at the highlight. I believe that was Eric Paschall. Highlight right there. The guy's a bully. He's a bully. He will bully you. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what position you play. He's getting you on that block and he's going to bully you. And I think the best thing about bullies is it doesn't really matter if the first shot goes in because I'm planning on getting the rebound and doing it again. And speaking of rebounds, Anthony Davis is he's just a magnet. LeBron has done a great job of playing with guys that have always had a knack. Kevin Love comes to mind, where LeBron can throw up some wild shots, and half the time, Anthony Davis is going to come away with it. The same way Kevin Love used to do the same annoying thing. It's just like they're a magnet to it. So, to overcome all of this has just been crazy, man. It's just been crazy. Like I talked about, phone lines are open. Text lines are open. Was getting some texts earlier. 925-876-5730. The first episode of Warriors Way. Very exciting stuff. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for everyone who's tuned in so far. If you dropped in, enjoy the rest. If you had today off, enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. Around the league, real quick, the Nets are really good with Kevin Durant and now James Harden. They're still waiting for Kyrie. I don't know what happened. I thought Kyrie was supposed to play this weekend. I thought I had read that, but kind of like 2020, the situation is fluid with Kyrie. Nobody really knows at this point, but they might be a finals contender without Kyrie, which is crazy, and I'm sure he'll come back eventually, but it's very possible. It's very possible. And what was the early game today? Check that real quick. The early game, and I thought it would be a better slate today, honestly. But it wasn't a bad slate. The early game, let's see here. Or I guess the promoted games, if you will. Yeah, Suns, Grizzlies, which also was a pretty close game. The Suns, they're going to have growing pains. The Grizzlies, I was probably more impressed with them. Ja Morant, I don't know. Look, I've rolled my ankle before. All I know is that when Ja Morant went down and he literally couldn't walk, he's back already. So I think, exaggeration, but maybe it was more shock. Maybe it was more shock than anything else. But good to see him back healthy and playing well for the Grizzlies. But good, look, we don't want you to play that good because those are the teams right there. Suns, Grizzlies, those are the teams that the Warriors are going to be right in the mix with come playoff time. And I believe the Warriors play the Suns pretty soon, so we'll get a look at what or how they're gonna do. But for the night, I'll tell you what, the Steph Curry teams will always get primetime games. Always. We know he's the best shooter ever. But it's not just that he's the best shooter ever. It's also the fact of how they do it. It's just exciting. It's just an exciting brand of basketball. And even when they're down or dead in the water, the last two times on Christmas and opening night, you still watch because you never know with Steph and you never know when the Curry flurry is coming. Those first games, they never did. This game was an interesting one as far as what Steph was able to do. He did close it a little bit, help to close the game, and that's been something that people have been tough on him about, as far as Steph gets going when the Warriors start to pull away anyway. So let's say the Warriors are up 7. Steph will get going and take it to 15, but Steph isn't really the one to ever initiate it. But he closed today. He closed today for sure with 26 points, 7 assists, only 1 rebound. So again, it's not when you do it, it's not how you do it, it's when you do it. And earlier in the game, Steph knows, and that's why we're watching this game as fans. We watch every game as fans, and every missed shot hurts just that much more. Just hurts that much more because you don't have a huge clay quarter to rest on if Steph's shots aren't falling. You don't have Kevin Durant ISO. You have whatever Kelly Oubre Jr. is bringing you that day, probably some kisses. You have whatever Andrew Wiggins decides to be or whoever he decides to be that day. You have that's what you're working with, and whatever Draymond is able to do besides in the scorebook. Although Draymond did this, what is this, a season high for Draymond? I mean, I'm not trying to roast, but I think it might be. 2 layups and a 3. So good day for Draymond. Good day for Draymond. Good day for the whole team. Pascal gives you 19 off the bench. And I know this is what happens. I was talking to my buddy saying that Pascal was making the option to trade Draymond so much clearer and so much easier. I do agree. But not yet, or not even close. I mean, what Draymond is able to still do defensively, and I wouldn't think anybody could deny that he may have lost a step or two, but we all do. That's just a part of life. And Draymond, you talk about mileage, like all mileage isn't created equal. Draymond got some hard miles on that body from guarding these bigs all of these years. So the idea that he has lost a step or two, yeah, he probably has. I would too if I was getting beat up by 7-footers every single day for however long Draymond's been in the league, a long time, nearly a decade. So that's not surprising. Now, the question is, they probably won't, or Pascal will probably never be as good of a defender as Draymond. But when does it get to that limit where it's enough to make up for it? Even what Draymond does off ball, is Pascal scoring better than that? Or is it at the time, wherever the Warriors are, as a team when that decision, it's time to make that decision. Because that's the thing. Draymond, he needs good players. He needs good players to do what he does. When you go to the Y and you're dropping dimes left and right, but you have no shooters on your team, it doesn't matter because the ball isn't going in. But you get some shooters on your team, those same passes that I'm making, now that the shots are dropping, now I look dope. Now I look like the point god, Chris Paul, whoever you want to call him, because the shots are going in. It's literally a make or miss league. And you put Draymond on a does he get a fringe team into the playoffs? Maybe, but really he's used for making great players even better. So, and he is not in that situation right now. He's able to make the team better, but I do think that prime Draymond is when he can facilitate because he understands what other people's strengths are. That is his strength, where his strength isn't being able to literally shoot the basketball. We know he shoots like he's got a backpack on. We know all those things, but it's what he's able to do with great players. So that is what is exciting. That is what is exciting about the future. And it's going to be a sad day when you lose Draymond. His number will be in the rafters for sure. But it's interesting to think about when you're going to be able to move on, because you're going to have to eventually. And unless you cannot have 5 scorers on the floor if 3 of those scorers are 3 historical scorers. And that's what the Warriors had with KD, Steph, and Clay. If you don't have that, and like I talk about, Draymond's or Steph's shots aren't hitting, it just hurts even more, and it's just tough, man. It's just tough. So Pascal keeps playing like this, and if his defense does start to come around, you have to make the decision. And I think Draymond is so realistic. He's always involved in trades and things like that. Draymond doesn't think he's Steph. That's why half the time he doesn't want to shoot it unless he has to. So whenever that time comes, I think Draymond will be like, you know what? I get it. It's a good run. This guy's able to do some things that I'm no longer able to do. Can we at least try to get me to a contender? And I think whenever that happens, it's going to be a sad day, but it's a grind. It's a grind. I have this KD jersey up simply because my dad got it for me when KD was obviously on the team. And my dad can't stand Draymond. He doesn't really like the Warriors anyway. So he kind of did it to troll me. So I'm kind of trolling myself by having it in the background for people that might think I'm a casual or just started watching the Warriors with KD. That is not the case. I have it just to say, you know what? My dad basically got it for me in hopes that I would never wear it or never utilize it. I'm going to utilize it, Pops. I don't care what people think about it. But text lines are open, like I talked about. We're heading on 40 minutes here, so we don't like to push this thing too far past 11. We know everybody has you got to get up for work. You got to get up for work. You got to do different things. So I'm going to leave the lines open for a little bit longer. Check the Twitter, see how that's going as well. And we are very excited about the first Warriors Way. First episode of the Warriors Way, again, with your host, Alan Styles. Text lines are open. Call lines are open. Like I said, usually do my little talk and then I talk about it after. I felt that today it was a good opportunity to just leave them open all day. Leave them open all night, all day, because the Warriors did something that we really just didn't expect them to do, or I did not expect them to do. And what a happy day, man. Oh, happy day as it was. Twitter, @the_Styles Files, Styles with an I. I really need to put that on this screen, and I will do that for next time. We're still getting these kinks out, Premiere though. So that's on Twitter and Instagram. I'm very active on Twitter, extremely active, but I would consider myself a good follow. I cannot lie. So we're going to give it a couple more minutes. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, everyone that tuned in. Exciting stuff. We'll talk to you soon, man. Look, I'm gonna play this back. I'm gonna save some of these and throw it on the Twitter. Keep this train rolling. If you are watching this the day after, like I said, 10:30 or it's almost 10:40 now. It's not necessarily early. Obviously, these will all be posted, so don't try to rush or fight through the sleep. You can get your slumber. This will be here in the morning for you to watch and get excited all over again as you head into your work week or continue your work week if you weren't blessed enough to have today off. Shout out MLK, by the way, of course. But yeah, so that'll be available, or it'll be available. You can comment, hop in there. Text lines are still open. Well, they won't be when you're replaying it, but you can get a head start on next week, and you can always tweet at me. But Twitter, Instagram, at @the_Styles Files. Styles with an I. Until next time, thank you for listening to The Warriors Way, the only